from his studios in New York, it's time for Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Here's your host, Dan Tortora.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, here for you Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And over 1,000 people have graced the stage of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and every single time we get to have a new voice on here, it means the world to me. And to have film, TV, and voice-over actor, as well as the creator of Jack of All Trades, a movie I just saw thanks to John Newman, and we'll talk about John a little bit too. Stu Stone is here on the show today. He has a tremendously long list of work that he's been able to do, and Stu and I are going to have to talk about the fact that his music also stays in your head, because I watched a couple of those videos, especially the Bob Saget, and I can't really get it out of my head at this point. So we got Stu here live from Toronto. Him and I are both hurting this morning as Raptors fans, but Stu, how are we doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you very much for having me. Good morning. And yes, perhaps like the Raptors needed a wake-up call this morning after coughing up what looked like was going to be a win in Game 1 against the Bucks there last night, but it wasn't meant to be, unfortunately.
No, and unfortunately, you know, this stuff seems to happen, but have you always been a Raptors? Because I'm 95, like the jersey, everything comes out, they unveil the logo, I'm there. Have you been a fan since the beginning?
I obviously, yeah. I mean, of course. Ever since Mighty Mouse Damon Stoudemire was named a Raptor back in the day, I've definitely been a fan of the team. And through the Vince Carter days, those were exciting times. Through the Chris Bosh era, which was a little more lackluster. Yeah. Through the DeMar DeRozan when we went to the conference finals the last time, and now of course we have the year of Kawhi. Will he stay? Will he go? Will he have a championship? That's pretty much my Raptors history. You can throw Oliver Miller somewhere in there, somewhere else, and Master P, the rapper, trying out for the team in some other chapter, but that's pretty much Raptors history right there.
And I think it's awesome that Master P almost made the team. Like they said that it was close, but Oliver Miller, it makes me so happy that even though I had to wait since 1995, Stu, the fact that you could have that timeline that only I felt like it was only me that could share that timeline living here in America. But the fact that you brought that to the show today, it has been a long time coming, but well worth it. And there's a Damon Stoudemire plaque with a Damon Stoudemire rookie card right behind my head in my studio this morning.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
he's really cool.
He was my favorite. Mighty Mouse was the best.
He was the man. You know, and I could have brought up Hakeem Olajuwon. He had a cup of coffee with the team.
Yeah.
But I left him out.
And
maybe next time.
Kenny Anderson, I remember that fateful day that SportsCenter did a thing where Kenny Anderson's number 7 jersey was hanging in the dark in the locker room, but he refused to play for the Raptors, so he never put it on.
Yeah, that is a darker period of time. Also, when the Raptors, I believe, were playing the Seattle Supersonics, they may have been just the Sonics at the time, and there was accusations that like Vince Carter was like giving the plays away to the Sonics. Do you remember that?
I remember. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
On his way out the door, like apparently there was like rumors here that Vince was so unhappy with the team, he was purposely giving plays away to the Sonics during a game. But I don't know if that's true or not. I just vaguely remember hearing that.
I remember his final press conference where they asked him if he was injured, because he like faked injury like that last year with Toronto because he was so mad. And they asked him if he was injured, and he goes, "No, I was fine." And I was like, "Wait a minute!" And like the way that he left Toronto was so dirty. I mean, they called him Air Canada. They named him after the Air Canada Center. You know, they made it all about Vince. And I remember him saying that, you know, like, "No, I wasn't hurt. I just didn't want to play." And I was like, you know that like this city glorifies you. Like, how are you going to leave? Like, people were crying over him leaving, and he left people from tears to just like sheer, you know, Incredible Hulk moments, turning that corner and just getting really angry at Vince Carter. But I think he's maybe patched the bridge a little bit. at this point?
I was going to say, just like the movie Jack of All Trades can maybe teach you. There's always hope for reconciliation down the line after an ugly breakup. I think when the last time Vince was here, they did like a whole video tribute, and it seems like everyone's sort of made up. There was a few close calls at the trade deadlines over the last couple of years where actually we thought Vince was going to land back on the Raptors, but it just never happened. I know he's like 58 years old now, but he's still going, so maybe next year will be the year that Vince comes back and does the old, one last hurrah. But, yeah, man, I mean, if the Raptors can get past the Bucks, anything is possible. If, Kevin Durant or Steph Curry trips in the shower and breaks their ankle, there's a chance that anybody could win the championship this year. There's no LeBron in the East, so the door is open for somebody to come in and step up.
Absolutely, and speaking of coming in and stepping up, Jack of all trades, I do want to speak with you on this, and I want to give a shout out to John Newman. So let's spend a second on John. I know that you had an opportunity to be on Sports Card Nation on his podcast, and you got to spend some time with him. How was that experience with John? Because I got to give him credit. He's the one that put me onto the movie.
No, he's great. Great guy and great show, and I had definitely a good time with him. And he was definitely extended invitation for me to, if I'm ever in the area of the queues, to hit him up and drinks are on him. So I think that goes for anybody listening, not just me.
Yeah, no, I say it all the time. When John says drinks are on me, that's for everybody. Not just you, Stu, and I. That's for everyone. It's that, and that's wherever we go for as long as we want it to be. And if Toronto loses, I think it's double drinks on John. So it's all good. so let's speak.
It was definitely a good experience, and his show is if you collect sports cards, baseball cards, he's got a great platform there.
No, absolutely, and he's done a tremendous job with the work that he's put forward, and also very knowledgeable when it comes to that world as well. And so he turns me on to Jack of All Trades, and we sat down and watched it this past weekend, and this past Saturday sat down and watched it, had a nice fire and relaxed and whatnot here in Syracuse, and it's a tremendous movie. I don't want to give obviously anything away about kind of where the movie turns and whatnot, so I'm kind of going to let it be an open canvas for you, Stu, speaking here with Stu Stone, just what you want to say about Jack of All Trades.
Well, if you are a listener of a certain age and era, there's a chance that you collected baseball cards at one point during your childhood or during your life. Specifically, 1984 to 1991, there was a golden age, a big boom for the baseball card hobby, and by 1987, baseball card shops were popping up everywhere, and I think they said by 1990 there was 10,000 baseball card shops in North America, and my family had 11 of those 10,000 baseball card shops. So all around the Toronto and surrounding areas, there was 11 locations of a store called Sluggers, which my dad, that was his brainchild, and so you can imagine that my childhood was completely consumed with not only just sports, but baseball cards, hockey cards, any kind of cards. It was our whole life. Our whole house was covered top to bottom. As soon as school was over, we would want to get to the store. On the weekends, we would be in the store. And it helped that it was the most popular hobby you could imagine. Of course, this predates, the internet and Xbox and all these other things that, iPads and stuff that people have today. We would either have to, we'd have to go outside and play or use our imaginations to do things. And baseball cards were just a huge part of our childhood and taught a lot of kids about, the trials and tribulations of trading and business and getting a card for $1 and selling it for $2. And there was a Beckett price guide that came out every month that you could look up your cards, and it was like a stock market in a lot of ways for kids. And one day the bubble kind of just burst, as it does on a lot of these type of markets. And I think there was a strike in 1994 that didn't help and sort of turned a lot of people off of baseball. And, right before then, my dad sold the business and got out of the business, and he kind of just, wasn't really part of our lives anymore after that. He kind of took off, and that was sort of like it for me in baseball cards. We had a nice run, but there was just a lot of, it was over. And to make a long story short, 20-some-odd years later, after my grandfather had passed away, they found all these boxes in his basement that had my name on them from when we must have moved from my childhood home after my parents got, separated and divorced. And I knew that, I had the best collection of baseball cards as a kid. And I used to collect everything. It wasn't just baseball cards. It was just the collector's mentality that I was brought up with. So I knew I had some really great stuff in those boxes. So we got together with some buddies, and we rolled camera, and we ended up making this amazing documentary, which, I'm a little biased, but it's a good, we'll call it a good documentary, about, that started out as an exploration into whatever happened to baseball cards, why, what's up with their value? Did they keep their value? Are they worth a small fortune now? Are they not? What's going on with the hobby? And ultimately, after going around and meeting and talking to all the different companies and meeting various players and whatnot, it turned into we should try to go and talk to your father because he'll have the answers for you. And so the movie sort of takes a turn, and it sort of becomes a potential reconciliation, I guess, between me and my estranged father end up getting back together there. So, that's pretty much the movie in a nutshell. But you don't have to be a baseball card fan to like the movie. There's something for everybody in it. But it definitely helps. If you were a card collector, there's a lot of nostalgia. There's a lot of, there's a lot of cool stuff. Jose Canseco is in the movie. And if you collected baseball cards at any point in your life, Jose Canseco was a household name. And, just to get to talk to him about baseball cards was so cool. So, I mean, that's my general rundown. Hopefully it convinced some of your listeners to check it out. It is available on iTunes and on video on demand I think through Amazon and other places. So you sort of have to look for it, but once you find it, I think you'll enjoy it.
No, and it's tremendous. Speaking here with Stu Stone this morning, we're speaking on Jack of All Trades, and for you, Stu, to kind of embark on this journey. We see in this movie, you find these cards and you believe they're worth something, and then we kind of see you go through this journey of are they or are they not? How much of this was because it looks tangible. I mean, it looks real that you're just kind of feeling this in the moment. Was that how it was, even with like the kind of twist with your dad maybe getting involved in this and whatnot? Did you kind of feel at all? Did it feel maybe staged or set up to you that somebody was like, hey, let's do this, or hey, let's do that, like an intervention? Or did you feel like it was just kind of just real time, things were happening, pieces were moving, and it just kind of ended up turning into something else? I mean, how would you describe going through it? Because only you can sit in that seat.
Yeah, I would say that, it's very much, when you watch these really good documentaries, and I'm not necessarily putting our movie up there with that, but when you watch these really good documentaries, there's usually like a crazy left-hand turn that they take that make them, that take them from a good movie to great movie and make them special. And I could probably tell you, even without speaking to those filmmakers, that it has a lot to do with like the film gods are looking down and shining on you, knowing what you're, that you're trying to tell a story. In reality, it had been brought up to me to go, maybe we should find your dad and talk to him. And, I might have been willing to go and look for him because I thought it would make an interesting movie, and not expecting to find him. And, going out to like where he may be living and try to track him down. But, what ended up happening in the movie, it's crazy. It's just out of nowhere. This guy just like turns up, not to spoil the movie, but, it's pretty ridiculous how stuff like that happens. And, it just feels like the universe is sort of telling you to do something. Now, I don't know if I would have gone through with everything and done everything if there wasn't a movie being made. I don't know that any of this would have ever happened, because there would be no reason for it to happen necessarily. So, I don't know, man. It's pretty crazy. It's definitely something that happened in real time, and it was definitely an unexpected surprise, and the whole thing is just wild. You know, there's the original cut of the film that I had turned into the broadcasters and whatnot was actually like 20. I want to say it was 22, 25 minutes longer than the movie you saw. It had a lot more about baseball cards and stuff in it. But you know, we had a time in our contract. We had a time constraint. You know, they needed the movie to be a certain amount of time for sales or whatever else. And you know, it came the stuff with the family was, everyone was going so wild over it that, you know, I'd actually like cut some baseball card stuff out of a baseball card movie to make room for this family stuff that ended up being so compelling to so many people. So, you know, I don't know, man. I'm kind of speechless at the whole thing. It went from a topic that I had never addressed in my life to something that I'm like talking about almost daily now, as this movie is out now and people are seeing it and people are discovering it.
Yeah.
And I'm also discovering that I'm not the only one that has gone through stuff like this. And it's made me sort of realize that, you know, and even the biggest problem that you are facing in your own life, someone else, there's thousands of other people are facing the exact same problem. So there's, you know, there's other people out there going through the same thing, no matter what it is. And it includes even a unique situation like mine. I'm getting emails and letters and hit up constantly from, you know, people who went through similar circumstances, who maybe didn't get a chance to do what I did, and, you know, it seems like they really got a lot out of it, out of my experience. So it's been a really interesting movie. I never thought that there would be a baseball card movie that, like, people would be crying watching it, but we have succeeded somehow at pulling that off. And, you know, it's been really amazing, and you know, it's actually got me loving the hobby of baseball cards again. You know, despite what we may have uncovered in the movie, I guess it's in my blood, but I can't get enough. And you know, some of the companies that produce these cards they might not be the biggest fan of mine anymore, but I'm still a big fan of theirs, and I can't help myself. I just was opening a box of 1987 Topps recently, pulled a Bo Jackson rookie card. It made me so happy. So, you know, it's an incredible thing that we got to do, and it's just amazing now to be able to finally share it with the world. And I love that you loved it. And if it wasn't for that movie, I wouldn't be talking to you. So there you go. We wouldn't even be talking if my dad didn't take off 20 some odd years ago. So there's fate for you right there.
And that's the thing is, you know, people talk about, and I always talk about, you know, you're thrown into the fire, and that original feeling, that first feeling of being thrown into the fire is, oh my God, it burns, you know, and you know, I could feel it. It's under my skin. It's, you know, it's burning me alive type of thing. And then all of a sudden, after a minute or so goes by, you look around and the flames are a part of you. You're a part of the flames. You're in them. You're alive. You're here. Then you start to use them for, you know, your own kind of progression forward. And I tell people that all the time. I don't like getting thrown into the fire, and then when I'm in the fire, I'm always like, oh, you shouldn't have done that, because now I'm going to be better. In your case, you know, like you said, you got thrown into the fire as a kid, and look at how you came out of this thing. Look at how successful you are, everything that you've done in film and the work that you've had, and what you've done in your personal life to grow as a human being. If you weren't thrown into the fire as a child, you wouldn't be the adult that you are, and that's got to be a tremendous story for you to wake up with every day.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. That's very sweet of you to say. And, you know, ironically, if I wasn't thrown into the fire as a child, maybe my baseball card collection wouldn't be thrown in the fire as an adult. But, yeah, listen, man, you nailed it. It's pretty, you know, I'm not going to lie to you and sit here and tell you that, like, much has changed for me from, you know, whatever happened with me in that movie. But, you know, at least I went through it and have some more answers, and not as many unanswered questions. And it's good. It's good. I mean, some days I feel great, some days I don't feel great, just like everybody else. But overall, I feel like in a bigger scheme of things that you go through everything for a reason. Whatever you want to call it. Some would say God's plan, some would say fate. But if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't have had this movie to share. And not to say that I would go through that again just to have this movie, but this is where life has taken me, and I'm okay with it. And I love the movie. I've seen it a bunch of times, and even as someone who had to sit in the editing suite and really cut a documentary down from hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of footage into 85 minutes, I still like it. I think it's good, and I can see things that I would do a little bit differently if I could, but overall, I would say that it's a really good movie, and I'm not just and I know that I'm a director of other movies, and I can tell you that those ones are not as good of movies. So I'm not just saying that all my movies are good, but this one is good, and I can confidently say that if people check it out, they're going to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, coming from film, TV, and voiceover actor, as well as the creator of Jack of All Trades, Stu Stone, here with us this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Stu, I want to ask you about Harvey, because we get to meet Harvey in the movie, behind the camera, in front of the camera, Harvey Glazer. Just what you could say about your relationship with Harvey, because it seems like, he's that friend that wants to pull out, the best in you, or maybe to get you to jump off that cliff and get to the other side when maybe you don't want to do it. What's Harvey been like in your life? Because we see kind of that back and forth with you in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with him. He was my next. He lived across the street from me growing up, so it was a natural choice to sort of have him go down this path with us because he knew it. He lived it too. He knew us. He knew my dad. He knew my mom. He knew the Cards. He was a part of our childhood, and I thought it would be a good idea to have him be a part of this, and in the end, it turned out that it was a good idea. But the journey to go through it with him, he's a guy that kind of picks at your scabs, and there was no shortage of scabs for him to pick in this during this journey. He's like a brother, I guess. It's like we have a love-hate relationship. We fight a lot. It was really a difficult process going through this with him. Not just in the filming of the movie, but in the crafting of the movie and the editing of the movie. We had a lot of disagreements along the way about a lot of things. And, it even resulted in us, having big blow-up fights and not even speaking for months at a time. But, the dust has settled on that, and we're cool. And, I'm really happy that I got to do this with him. But it was very difficult. He's a really great guy. He's a great, he knows what he's doing, and he has a way of getting under your skin. But like you said, in the end, he's got good intentions, and what it is that he's trying to get you to do is actually a good thing. He just needs to work on the branding and messaging of how he gets you to do it, in my opinion. But, Harvey's a very talented guy. He's a film director who, has a lot of really cool credits on his resume, and I think that this is a real special one for him because we got to do it together, and same for me. So all the best. I got nothing but positive things to say about Harv. But I'm not going to lie to you. It was a very strenuous, stressful journey for the both of us to do this together. We both had two very different visions of what we wanted this movie to be, and we weren't shy about letting our audience kind of take a peek into that as well. And it's interesting. You're watching a movie about the making of a movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you had two guys trying to direct a movie who want to tell two different stories. And in the end, both stories kind of tie in together, and it all sort of makes sense. So, kudos to Harv, and I don't know if he's listening, but if he is, he should go visit John Newman. Drinks are on John if he's ever in Syracuse.
Absolutely. So here with Stu Stone, and Stu, before I let you go, I got to ask you this. I do an entertainment show called Super Powered Pop, kind of the brother show of Wake Up Call, and I have to jump into this because both of these songs, after John played them, we're sitting out by the fire, and he goes, "You got to check these out." So Rollin' with Saget and Ordinary Girl, I got to ask you about both of them separately because they both hit me in a different way. But Rollin' with Saget, first of all, Bob Saget, we know, is so much more than Danny Tanner from Full House and is actually the polar opposite when you see him out and doing his comedy and whatnot. How did you get Bob Saget to do this thing? I know, obviously, you have a connection with Jamie Kennedy, but bring me into doing a music video with Bob Saget, and how willing was Bob to do this thing?
Well, it's funny. It seems like a lifetime ago, but Jamie Kennedy was doing a movie called Malibu's Most Wanted, where he played like a rapper named B-Rad, and the movie was pretty successful. He wanted to try to record a rap album of songs with B-Rad, and he, sort of asked me. I was kind of I had a band back then, and I was doing music, and he asked me if I'd be interested in helping him kind of write and produce a B-Rad album, and I was like, sure, no problem. And off to work I went, and we started crafting these songs. And as we were going along on that path, Jamie and I sort of ended up just doing it together, and we sort of ended up becoming a sort of a group, let's just say. And we were doing these silly rap songs together. And once we sort of realized, hey, these songs are pretty good, we should try to get a record deal. We thought, you need to have a guest feature on your song. All these great rap songs back then always had like a hot rapper featuring on it's a good way to get an unknown rapper known is by getting a known rapper on your track. So we had reached out to Nas and Jay-Z and all of these big rappers, and nobody was interested. One day Jamie just threw me his phone, and I was like, who's in your phone? Like, there's got to be somebody. And I didn't even make it past B because we landed on Bob Saget. And I was like, this is it. You got to call Bob. And of course, Bob loves Jamie, and he was down. And the rest is history. Yeah. We have a rap song called "Rollin' with Bob Saget," which ended up being sort of a life-changing, at that time, song for me and Jamie. We ended up getting an MTV show that it was like Curb Your Enthusiasm with white rappers. And it chronicled our time trying to get a record deal, which we ultimately did. And it all lands on Bob Saget, who, it could have been Jay-Z, could have been Nas, but no, we ended up with Bob Saget, and it was perfect.
Absolutely.
There is a music video on YouTube that you can watch, and George Lucas makes a cameo in the music video. Yeah. And it's just insane. Yeah. Also, Terry Crews and John Stamos are also in the video, and it's so good. Bob Saget's the man. So if you ever see him on tour, I know he comes through Syracuse a lot and drinks with John Newman, but he uses that song to come up on stage at all of his shows. So if you end up getting a chance to see Bob, definitely tell him Stu says hi.
Absolutely, and the other song that you did, and you said, you never know what people are going through in life, and I'm always, real with my listeners about it. I've always been honest. 16 years of broadcasting, just kind of telling people, this is what's going on. And the day after my, you had, obviously with your dad leaving and whatnot, I had been married. And I thought, okay, the rest of my life is with this person. It's with this woman, and I'm going to be with her forever. And the day after she ultimately kind of cheated and left the house, I got on the show the next morning. And I don't think she expected that's, Sunday morning, 3 a.m., and all this stuff is going on. What's he going to do Monday? And Monday morning I got on and I talked about adversity, and I didn't really get into my thing, but I kind of talked about, what you go through, and you started getting, like you said, I started getting messages from people like, this is happening with my son right now, and it's really stressful. This just happened to my mom, and I'm trying to find a way through it. Thank you for talking about adversity. I needed that today. Thank you for being real. And you started to see that, that collective pain where I don't want to talk about it, but I feel like I should talk about it because maybe it can help somebody. And then I watched this, and this is the thing, you never know what something's going to do. I watched Ordinary Girl, and I watched it on YouTube, and the thing about it is I have gone through since, she had left and you get back out into the dating world, I believe in God, I'm a moral guy, I tell the truth, I've never cheated, I try to do things the right way, and I found that in the world of dating now, some people think their doesn't stink, so to speak, and that they're a higher caliber, or that people are better than this. I watched Ordinary Girl, and it made me take a step back, in all honesty, and go, nobody's better than anybody else. And some people like yourself see that this person thinks that they deserve this, or that they've earned the right to treat somebody a certain way, and they don't. So that that song actually touched me. The video did, because of my road of the last 7 months and my road of kind of growing. So I have to give you a lot of props and a lot of credit for that.
Thanks, man. That's crazy. It's the first time I've ever been complimented on that song. I love it. It feels like a lifetime ago, like I said, when I was even doing that music, but it's still out there, and it's like I'm not gonna be one of those people that calls what I do art, but just for the sake of this metaphor and this conversation, a lot of great art is birthed from going through great pain, and pain births art, and pain births storytelling. It's very similar to Jack of all trades. I went through terrible things and was able to turn it into something. And same thing with Ordinary Girl. Obviously I've gone through similar circumstances that you have gone through, and a lot of other people have gone through, and just decided to tell, turn it into something. So, you going on your show on Monday is very similar to me doing that song or me doing this movie. It's like that's your platform, and kudos to you for doing it. It's crazy. It's a silly. I'm a little embarrassed by the songs nowadays. I'm a little older now, and I look back and I'm like, oh God. But it's funny, that still after all these years, there's still people that are discovering, these songs, and it still can have an effect after all these years. It's pretty awesome. It's just the power of music. It's timeless. It's great. I don't know what to say, but I'm humbled that you found a little comfort hearing that song, and I thank you for the compliments and the high praise.
No, absolutely. And the two final pieces here, you mentioned Jose Canseco, and I want to get to one final piece after that. But Jose Canseco, just what you can say about, this guy's larger than life. I'm watching Jack of all trades. I'm looking at this guy going, is he bigger now than he's ever been? Did he eat Jose Canseco? Yeah. This guy is massive. He looks like he can, bang home runs like nothing right now. This is a guy that I grew up with. Got a lot of, I loved watching him play, and just the way that he went about it, his kind of no nonsense, I don't care what you think of me. You got to sit down with him. So how did that all happen? How did you get the connection to Jose Canseco, and then just bring me into being in a room with this guy who's literally larger than life?
Yeah, he is. He's definitely a monster. He doesn't age. He still looks like Jose Canseco. You go to a lot of these card conventions and comic cons, and you see celebrities and stars from the 80s and 90s, and they don't look anything like themselves. They look like a shell of themselves, and not their fault. Life happens. But Jose Canseco has found a fountain of youth, and he has guzzled the whole thing down. The guy looks the same as he did 20 years ago. His muscles are probably bigger than they were. I'm not going to speculate what's in the water that he was drinking, but boy, oh boy, he looks like he could hit 50 home runs right now. When I first got to his place to talk to him, he wasn't very receptive to us when we first got there. But, by the time we left there, we were best buddies, and he, what are you guys doing later? Let's hang. He was so cool. And I guess, I understand, a guy like him probably has his guard up, because there's so many hanger-oners and people that are trying to just always, have evil intentions. And then, he's been surrounded by controversy for so long that he just seems to have this wall up. But we managed to chip away at his wall, and by the end of it, the wall was completely down, and he was so cool, sharing amazing stories with us. The thing about a documentary, it's very edited. You have I was with Jose Canseco for over 2 hours. You saw, a handful of minutes of that.
Yeah.
I could do a whole movie just on the interview with Jose Canseco. Like, that's how amazing it was. And I wasn't shy about asking him anything. He was down to talk about whatever. And just a really cool guy. I think he's really misunderstood. I think that, he does a lot of crazy things to get attention on Twitter and whatnot. And, so I guess that's what he likes to do. But he's, when we were kids, there was no bigger star. I mean, yeah, there was Michael Jordan and arguably Bo Jackson, but Jose Canseco was right up there. This guy did it all. And it was amazing to get to talk to him and chill with him. There's other players that we got to interview in the movie, too, that didn't actually make it into the final cut. I actually got to talk to Will Clark as well. He was the man also. And here's another guy that people always thought of as, like, standoffish. But, I had a great time talking to him.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of these players and celebrities in general, like, they all seem to have this, like, wall up that you have to sort of chip away at. They need to sort of trust you before they sort of open up because of all the, lecherous people they probably have in their lives. So kudos to Jose for opening up his door to us and letting us in. And it was really cool to get his perspective, not only on baseball cards and on his career, but on his mustache that he tried to grow early in his career. I made sure to definitely keep all of that stuff in the movie because I found it to be so funny. But for those of you who are not familiar, on Jose Canseco's rookie cards, he has like a little caterpillar on his top lip. And I had to call him out on it and get an explanation on what the hell he was thinking with that mustache.
Yeah.
And he certainly did give me his feelings on it.
Yeah, he gave you a nice answer for that you should all see by going.
Another story, but there was one point in his career where he was doing MMA fighting, and he once went down. There was an MMA fight advertised between him and some other celebrity. The name is escaping me right now, but apparently, Canseco won the fight, and then at the end they realized that it was actually his twin brother Ozzy Canseco that had been in the fight. So he's got some crazy stories, including that one. But he does have that twin brother of his, so you never know.
Yeah.
Some of those 40 home runs may have been hit by Ozzy.
Yeah, Jose Canseco is definitely a story in and of himself every single day, I feel. The final piece, speaking here with Stu Stone. Stu, you've gotten to do so much work, and jack of all trades, we've gotten to speak about this morning and spend a lot of time with that, but you've worked on so many different things, and, being a voice actor, you've gotten to get involved with a lot of things like Swamp Thing and Beetlejuice and Bill and Ted's, and I think you had mentioned Rugrats, Super Mario World and whatnot. Just what you can say, The Tick, about, your experiences with that, because I'm looking at all of this, and I'm finding a lot with that. Everybody kind of finds you a certain way and whatnot, but I'm kind of taken aback by you being a part of all these shows that I grew up with. So, just what that life has been like for you, that, you've gotten to go out there and be in the music industry and rap and whatnot, make these songs. You've been able to direct it, be a filmmaker and create different things, and obviously, create jack of all trades. And you've been in movies like Donnie Darko, and you've done voice acting work. You've gotten to really jump into a bunch of different worlds. So I know that could be a whole show in and of itself, but to just kind of give me your thoughts on some of the things that you've gotten to do, because you've been so seasoned, in being able to work in these worlds and be a voice actor and really bring some of this stuff to life.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the title of the movie is more befitting on me, because a lot of people would say that, in the entertainment field, I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. Not necessarily great at one thing, but pretty good at a lot of things. And I would give the credit to my mom and dad for that. I got into the acting business without choice, really. I was a little kid and sort of just grew up doing this. And by the time I was 10 years old, I had landed a role on a cartoon you probably don't remember, called My Pet Monster. That was my first
I do remember that
cartoon job, and it sort of just spawned from there. I think I was in over 75 different cartoon shows when I was a kid, and it was amazing. Like, I didn't even know how that stuff worked until I got there to do it, and it's incredible. It's obviously incredible. Being on all those cartoons was amazing, and I still do some cartoon work from time to time now, even as an adult. But there was like a heyday, I would say, from it kind of correlated with the baseball cards a little bit, but from around 87 to 95, I was probably on every cartoon show that there ever was. It was amazing. It was a hell of a run, and some of those shows are still airing now. One of the shows I was on was called The Magic School Bus, which is a little bit past when you were watching cartoons, but it's like a cartoon we did 20 years ago that's still popular today.
Yeah.
And it's the same episodes still playing 20 years later. It's remarkable. Donnie Darko is another project which is not voiceover, but I was an actor in, but it's something that we did 15 years ago, and it's still to this day a talked about movie. So I've been very lucky to be a part of these type of projects that have long shelf lives. They're like non-perishable movies and cartoons and stuff, and it's been amazing. And I'm very thankful for the career that I've had, and I feel like I've been a guy that's been flying under the radar, so to speak. I've been in a ton of stuff, but I'm one of those guys that's like, oh, you were in that. So I have a lot of famous friends, but I can walk down the street and have and get from A to B quite comfortably, and not have privacy issues that a lot of celebrity friends do have. They can't even leave their houses. So I'm very blessed and thankful for the journey that I've been on, and I know that I'm just getting going. This is a new hat I'm wearing as a filmmaker, and I'm definitely enjoying it, and I'm really excited to see where the future takes me.
Absolutely. That coming from Stu Stone, film, TV, voiceover, music, and so much more. Jack of all trades, like Stu said. Stu said, not just the name of the movie that he brought to us, but also the, kind of fitting moniker of who he is in this world of entertainment. Stu, I know it's the first time you've been on the show, but would love to have you back. I can't thank you enough for spending an extended amount of time.
No problem. We're just scratching the surface, man.
Absolutely.
But we can do that for sure.
And as we know, drinks on John, so that's good.
Yeah, of course.
So,
John Newman. I was telling John Newman that one of my very good friends and the guy that did a lot of the music, all those great songs that you hear in Jack of all trades, his name is John Newman. So there was a good tie-in right there.
Yeah.
He's not buying drinks for anybody, that John Newman.
Oh yeah, this one he's good people. I could vouch for him. But Stu, as always, thank you so much. I really honestly can't thank you enough for telling your story and being so open about it and spending some time here today. And so I look forward to having you back soon. And the door is always open
anytime,
here.
Man. Anytime, just let me know. Anytime, and hopefully someone out there listening will get a chance to watch Jack of all trades, and they can hit me up on social media. I've got all those, Twitter and Instagram, and there's definitely a Jack of all trades presence. The Jack of all trades Instagram page is amazing. Every day there's a new baseball card uploaded on there, so if you need a trip down memory lane, you definitely should check out the Jack of all trades Instagram page, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. And again, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So take care. We'll talk with you soon.
All right, take care.